Hello, everyone. Today we're making the mane. For a little while, it's going to look like a yellow donut, and then we just put that on the neck of the Flareon body, and then later we're going to brush it out so it looks actually fluffy. I've made donuts before. They were really fun. Starting with the chain, because we need to have a hole in the middle. What's the trickiest for me, where during these projects where you have to like chain a bunch and then make a ring, is not twisting it, because that will mess it up. I improved my lighting, by the way, so hopefully all these yarns look better. Got to join to say how to join. So I'll just do a slip stitch. I feel like with this microphone, I sound like a 5-year-old. Although that's also how I sound on my phone. So maybe it's just my voice. I need to get my stitch marker. Does this look confusing? Maybe I could move this up as well. For a little while, Miss Raya of Elden Ring, I I kept seeing fan art of her as a snake, and I kept asking myself, why can she become a snake? Does this have something to do with Rykard? Well, today I found out, and I'm not sure if that's better. Yesterday, I was saying that Chibidoki is like little sibling simulator. That's kind of also how I would describe Crazy Ollie. Maybe it's because they're like trying to keep up. I feel like younger siblings, they just they never rest. And speaking of Ollie, I want to try and draw a cute zombie character. I just haven't worked it into the story I'm thinking of yet. I think what we're gonna do with this is put the mane on, sew that on, and then sew the head on top of the neck. So it'll look really strange for a minute, but hopefully really cute once it's all done. I gotta make sure I have the right amount at the end of this. I should have 24. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 18, 21, 24. Good. Counting is not my thing. So every once in a while, I just completely forget to count my stitches at an end of a row. Then I have to like overcorrect, and the pattern I end up with ends up looking, the project I end up with ends up looking very different from the pattern. I have an actual pet brush that I think I can use to brush this yarn and make it fluffy. But it's funny to me because it's sort of like brushing a pet, only less messy. Because my dog, well, she's my family's dog, not just mine, but she sheds so much fur. Like when you brush her, you remove so much fur. I feel like you could like glue it together and make a paper mache statue of another dog. The yellow looks better on camera. I love Chibi Doki's new model. Well, like, I guess it's technically a new outfit. The one where she's dressed up in quote pajamas. They look so comfy. I think Yucklesh drew her model, but I think I'll have to check. It's super cute. It's also nice to see Chat sitting on her head, providing helpful commentary like we've been stuck here for 4 days, or we discovered a new planet, sulfur, and pink as far as the eye can see. It's really cool to have fans that will like joke with you and talk back with you so much. I have a bad habit of gripping onto the things I crochet way too hard. It is tough on my hands, which is one of the reasons why I wear these. So that's something I'm trying to work on. I wonder if when I attach the ears to this Flareon, if it'll also look like tiny Yoda, because that was how the Espeon looked before I put it all together. It looked like some kind of alien. At least on Espeon, maybe that's intentional. Some aliens have like mind reading powers. Espeon's a psychic type, but Flareon is uh well, it's not any one thing, but it's not an alien. It would be so cool to see people cosplaying my OCs one day. Right now, a lot of them just wear normal clothes, so I don't know if people would be able to tell that that's a cosplay. But maybe if they wear like the same outfit over and over again, or there's a uniform I'm thinking about having a bunch of them wear. So maybe you could have lots of people wear that. Did this much already. I thought it would take longer. Right now it looks kind of like some kind of giant Cheerio. I remember seeing Iron Mouse talk about how she can eat Cheerios again a little while ago. It's interesting how we're different because they don't really taste like anything to me, so I don't really eat them, but she's had a completely different experience where she has a hard time eating everything. She doesn't have access to all like the flavors and textures that I do. So to her, it was a big deal. Not that the standard American diet has a lot of flavors or textures. It's mostly brown. Like It's funny, a lot of Americans, they make fun of Britain for having, like, bad food, but, like, generic, quote, unquote, "American food," not like native people eat, like, stuff like you get at the store and then microwave. I wouldn't call that very good either. A little while ago, I made a really big donut pillow, and it was really fun, but I did it for way too long at a time, and my hands were in so much pain. I think I've posted that, I'm not sure if I have. Does this look like cake? There's, like, cake donuts. They're always brown on the outside for some reason, but on the inside, they're like yellow cake. It's really funny to me how Kosaki Bijou from Hololive English Advent, she's like the smallest and the cutest of her generation. So sometimes they treat her like a little sister, right? Like, oh, so cute, I want a head pat. But then she's like the absolute strongest gamer. She's good at high skill games like the Souls titles. She's a programmer. She made that whole mod with Callie as Sans. And like, she's like the little sister character who's like, actually, I'm a genius. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure Shiri is like the quote unquote leader here, which is kind of funny out of context because she's the one who learned Eldritch knowledge and went semi crazy, and she's still the most stable one out of her generation. Ordinarily, I would call the dogs little siblings because they're similarly energetic and youthful. But then you have Bijou, who is like this tall. Something I think about with mascot horror is the whole thing of kids stuff being corrupted or evil. Like that's not just scary to me, that's sad because it's supposed to be something that's friendly and comforting, and here it's not. And you see that all the time in real life. Like a lot of the people that make kids content are evil. Like there's whole YouTube channels that are just like quote unquote fun for kids, but they just want to make a buck, or they're actively harming the kids who actually make the content. Like even without the hauntings or whatever is going on in Poppy Playtime, there's still the real world stuff happening. And I'd be curious to see if those two things would get integrated. Like maybe someone started haunting their toys because they were like, ha ha ha, I can bring them to life and not pay anybody to do it because I'll just summon this demon or something like that. I don't know. Or how Freddy Fazbear's is obviously haunted now. It's got a lot of problems, but it it wasn't safe even before the hauntings. It the pizza was so bad it could be mistaken for human skin. It wasn't good. What can you use the supernatural stuff to say about the state of like ordinary, quote unquote, ordinary evil? Kind of like with sci-fi. I've been considering exploring mascot horror ideas of my own. And I'm not sure I would want to make the actual mascots like scary. Like it can be interesting to read about it, but I'm not sure I would want to write it myself. I wonder if instead, like the horror could come from somewhere else and you're playing as the toys, like you're trying to just make kids happy or have fun, but all this weird stuff keeps happening. Maybe the people at like the toy company are trying to corrupt you. Maybe there's some kind of ghost and you're like trying to escape it, but then the ghost turns out to be the ghost of a kid and they were hurt and you have to comfort them. If the toys are scary, I could always connect it to like human evil being bonded to them, kind of like the story where Fafnir puts on the ring and turns into a dragon because that's how he looks on the inside, the evil on the inside because the evil on the outside. And in this case, I don't know, maybe like there's like this toy company and then the CEO gets like stuck in a toy. And that's why it's scary now. Like, maybe the toys themselves don't like this and they want to make kids happy and be friendly, but a bunch of stuff keeps getting in the way. And I'm not sure if this would be a game, but I would want it to come across clearly that, like, you healing them from all of the bad stuff that's happening that needs to also address the human evil part of the equation. Because otherwise, why would you put it there? Why would you put it there? I don't know if I would want the toys to be, like, jumping out and hurting you, but maybe you have to, like, protect them, and there's like, maybe you're running from ghosts instead of the ghosts possessing the toys. Looks like a little muffler. I like the idea of toys coming to life if you're, like, kind to them and you show them affection. Maybe that could help determine how they turn out. Like, if you teach them to be evil, maybe they'll turn out to be evil, or maybe they'll absorb, like, evil sentiments. But if you're kind to them and you show love, maybe that'll bring them to life and they'll be kind. It could be fun to have, like, different models of the same toy, but they're individual characters because they have different sentiments associated with them. Like, maybe one of them is in good condition, but the evil one is, like, damaged or broken. Maybe being evil, they've tried to attack people before, but they're toys, so they get kinda damaged for it. Maybe the harm they do could be more, like, emotional or spiritual than physical. Like, even if they can't really kill you, maybe it's more like Ratatosk, where they tell you, like, everyone hates you, or the worst things you believe about yourself, or the worst gossip people say about you, and that's really hard to get over. We're gonna get to do some sewing today. Sew this all up once it's done being crocheted. Maybe you could talk about like the toys are all being created by this company that's kind of scummy, but the toys aren't all scummy. And instead, it depends on like who plays with them, who teaches them. You get to decide who you want to be. You're influenced by the people that raise you. If the main character was a kid, they might not know entirely what they're doing. Almost done. Okay. This doesn't look like a donut right now, but when we pinch it like this, it'll become more like a ring, and we sew it up, and then we stuff it. Just a simple whip stitch. It sounds so bad. It sounds like an actual whip, but it's just because you can do it quickly. A lot of mascot horror seems to keep its protagonists very featureless too, like you don't see them. I'm not sure if I want to do that, but it could be fun to have their personality or their actions be decided by just what the player chooses. And that could help sell the message of you choose what you want to do, you choose who you be, things like that. Like the player can't control that they were affected by like evil spirits, but they can choose how they respond to it. Like how toys, if they're created by like this scummy company, maybe they get like, can you guys hear me? Maybe they get like negative emotions attached to them because they're around a bunch of negative people. And if you're kind to them, then maybe they'll choose like, hey, I can be kinder. Or maybe if all they've encountered is kindness, maybe you could show that with one of the player's toys, then they have positive sentiments. They were brought to life by love instead of like nastiness just spilling over. We only made 2 billion this year, slightly less to give to our shareholders. I feel like when I say things like this out loud, it sounds hyperbolic, but I have legit seen companies and CEOs that act like that. It's crazy. Might have to use outside aid. Should probably turn this inside out. That would make it easier to stuff. Maybe you could have toys that were brought to life by evil and they're still like pretty chill, good people. You could use that to talk about like lots of people are brought up in a really bad environment. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad person. It's more about like beliefs. Like, what are you taught to believe? Do you really believe that? Or do you go, no? Do you internalize it or not? I think a lot of people are kind of expecting blood and like guts with mascot horror because in real life obviously it's very unexpected. You don't want like kids toys in general. You really don't want kids toys to be violent. I don't know if I would want to do like physical violence, but you also don't want them to be like emotionally hurtful either. So maybe we could talk about that. Yes, playtime incorporated. Such I don't remember if it's incorporated. I remember it's called Playtime. Such an imaginative name for a toy company. I might have to get more thread. Hope not. Maybe you could have the player character come from like a kind family, even if you don't go into too much detail. Then you get to decide like, do they pass it on or do they just go like, man, evil, cool, or I don't care about that. I told you it looked like a donut. Looks like a Cheerio in this lighting. It's neither. Something I would be curious about exploring with mascot horror is I don't want the kids' things to be corrupted. I want them to be safe. But it's also true that sometimes, like, they always were corrupted, not necessarily the toys themselves, but like the practices that made them or the people that made them. Like the darkness that we're seeing now, it's not like it was never there before, or maybe we just didn't see it or we weren't paying attention. We're making the hair tough now, a little tuft of hair that sits on Flareon's head. For some reason, it reminds me of butter. distracting to have my keyboard there. I could move it next time. If I had to do my own mascot horror thing too, I'm not sure I would want to set it in the real world. I might want to just put it in a world where magic exists or just have it be like emotions influence things. Because I'm not personally super into the whole like real world, but with magic added like urban fantasy thing. It's just like I've enjoyed it. It's just not really something I look for. I think it's partly because that was like all the rage in the 2010s and I just got inundated with it. Maybe I could have it be like a fact or at least like a kind of thing people know in the back of their mind in the story world. Like the emotions you have influence things. I actually have another idea similar to that I'm working on right now, but maybe the protagonist doesn't really believe it or they don't really think about it that much until, oops, now they're running for their lives from haunted toys or ghosts or something. I'm not sure if we'll get to the tail today, but we could do it tomorrow probably. I think that's actually the last piece before we start sewing everything together, unless you count like filling in the ears. I don't know how we're going to do that yet. I haven't gotten there. There's kind of an expected formula with these kinds of games where you're like interacting with the environment and you really only learn about the story through recordings, pictures, posters, things like that. And environmental storytelling is something I like. It's something I'm interested in, but I don't want to do everything just exactly the same as what you expect. I'm not sure, like, if this was a game, I'm not sure if I would make it just like exploring. I might give it a definitive story. I might make it an RPG. I don't know. I also want to make sure I can surprise the viewer because at this point, mascot horror is an established enough genre that people will be like expecting innocent looking toys to come out and kill you, you know? So How can I twist that? How can I make them hurt you? That's why I'm thinking about, like, emotional pain. Or and at least some of the ways if they do hurt you physically, maybe that's not all because of, like, corruption or they're being haunted. Maybe they were just, like, made badly and they're capable of physically harming someone, and that could show you, like, wow, there was not a lot of safety testing done. That could show you, like, the people in charge, they don't care about, like, you know how companies will have slogans like "happiness for everyone," and then they underpay their workers, they have unsafe manufacturing processes, things like that. It could be fun to have the protagonist explore a place like a toy factory or a playhouse or somewhere because they're, like, a big fan of whatever the brand is or the toys themselves, and then they find out things are more complicated than they expected. Especially as a kid, maybe hopefully not everyone is expecting, like, the things that make their entertainment to be, like, sucky. So maybe for a kid, that would be hard, and they have to decide, like, "What do I do with this information?" Or maybe as an adult, maybe they, like, deep down, they kinda know that's probably what's happening, but they don't wanna think about it, you know? They're just trying to chill. But if people are actually getting hurt, then you have to go, "Hmm, what can I do about this? Hmm, haunted toys are destroying the building, and they might get out soon. I have to do something about that. I can't just stand here." It's quick. We're almost done. Not the whole thing. We're almost done the hair tuft. It looks like a teardrop. Free arm. I'm gonna try and stick the mane on the neck and see how it fits. It does fit. I'll definitely have to sew it on, but look. Map. I'm not sure if we'll finish the tail, but we can probably start on it. If I did set a mascot horror thing in the real world, though, something that could be interesting about it is a couple streams ago, like I was saying, if like some random person found out about demons or magic or something, I don't think they would freak out about it as much as a lot of media portrays. I think some people would just be like, well, how can I use this for me? Like, I have magic. Can I just like clone things that my company makes and then I don't have to do manufacturing costs? Can I make myself invincible? Can I make myself super strong? Even in real life, there's a lot of things that we know exist, but we don't understand them. Like people have theories about dark matter, but we aren't actually sure of a lot about it. We don't know exactly how the sun functions. The sun's magnetism is crazy. It's a whole thing. I won't get into it here. But if you ever start doing like even basic astronomy stuff, you'll learn that Earth magnetism, sun magnetism, very different. I think it's light too that doesn't even require a medium to travel through. It's just there. It's it's not like how ripples need to travel through water. It's just there. And maybe that could be the angle. Like, look, this thing exists. We don't know why magic exists. It's just here. Or maybe people don't connect that it's like part of their emotions because then they're like, no, my emotions, they affect these things. You mean I have to take responsibility for my actions? Or maybe you could have the player realize if they get angry, oh, I'm hurting this other person or I'm influencing them to be angry or I should watch that. Oh, these like this CEO, they had these negative emotions and that gave all these toys negative emotions and look at what's happening now. They're going crazy. And that could make the player think about their choices and they matter. They affect other people. They affect the story. Kind of Undertale coded. The tail is so fluffy. I never really looked at Flareon's tail because I'm not a freak, but I'm looking at it in the pattern. And it's almost like the size of the body. A lot of times when you're making a circle, it'll look like a hexagon at first, but that's just where you increased. It'll smooth out once you're doing a single crochet all the way around. And speaking of people not caring as much about the origin of magic, for example, in Indigo Park, I would look at it kind of like they're clearly alive now. Finley is like an actual big dragon. He wasn't kidding. And you have like what's her name's Molly, the macaw. She's very clearly an alive creature. If you weren't there the last time I talked about this, I basically said maybe someone did that because they thought, "Oh, I can bring these characters to life," and then they didn't specify the monkey's paw curled. And in this case, that would probably be bad PR, but in another case where they weren't as like immediately dangerous, they don't immediately make the park look bad. I think people would run away if they saw this craziness. Then maybe you could have that be about like the greed where someone's like, "Oh, I can turn these things to life." Then lots of people will want to come see them and they don't really think it through, because they don't care about that. So they're like, bring these toys to life. And it works, but badly. It's June, which reminds me of something. Apparently, Father's Day is in June. But a little while ago, I was looking at this photo album that was about like me and my dad, my first Father's Day. I was a baby. And apparently, it was so hot outside that Father's Day that my dad, like, he was sitting on the edge of like a public fountain and he dips me in it. I I wouldn't do that. I didn't like it. According to the photo, I have my face squished up like a raisin. Oh, see, it looks more like a circle now. It kind of reminds me of a pizza with no sauce on it. My arms are getting tired, so I think we'll be done after this row. Should pin the mane on in a minute. Okay, that should be all for today.